Christian parenting.
Hey, Dina, welcome to Pardon the Mess. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Courtney.
It's so nice to meet you. We got to catch up a little bit. And so some people might know you from other things you've done for Christian parenting, but
Yes.
I'm torn because I don't want to have this conversation because I hate cooking, but we're going to get into it. I'm like,
Oh no, I'm gonna make you love it. And
I'm like, give me like one recipe that everyone will like. That will be amazing.
I think baked penne vodka is always a winner. I
Really?
mean, who doesn't like a cheesy pasta that's like baked together with like that restaurant sauce that everybody
Yes,
always
please.
orders, but it's so simple to make at home.
Okay.
So that's like one of those ones that I feel like most people get into.
Okay.
But I mean, I've got things in a chapter called the Mom Minute. If you just
Yes.
want to take a date, slice it open, put some peanut butter and fluff in it,
Yes.
and just have a minute at 3 p.m. as you're gripping your counter, like, I don't know if I can make it to bedtime.
Oh
That's
my word. That's amazing. All right. Well, let's back up. Tell us a little bit for those that don't know you about you and your family and what you're up to these
Sure.
days.
Sure. So easy peasy. My name is Dina, and I started the whole Dish It Girl thing by accident almost a decade ago, which makes me sound like ancient. I'm like an internet grandma, you know? Like I've
You're
been
like
around these
82.
parts for
No.
a while. But what it really came from was my parents were so big on Sunday dinner. My mom was like 5:30 every night. We sit down for dinner, and that was a ministry and that was a treasure. And I wanted to bring that feeling back to everyone. I wanted to make it apparent
Yeah.
to those around me, like how important that was, and to my mom too, that I really appreciated.
I love that.
Really appreciated that. So everything was about food. My mom was always cooking and making sure things were happening. My dad was always eating, always trying a new hole in the wall kind of thing. And I was the oldest of four. So I got to go on what I like to call ride-alongs with
Yeah.
him. He'd throw me in the car for the errands on like a Saturday. So I would get to stop at like the hot dog joints and like the random bakery. So I was just curated
Love
for
it.
obsession with food, and I was the girl reading and collecting gourmet magazine, not reading Cosmopolitan. So like in my college dorm, I was like, let me make you all chicken parm on this little
Wow.
janky stove. Like I don't know what my issue was. I just wanted to feed everyone. I just thought
That is
that was
so cool.
it.
So did you major and go on to do a career in that?
Absolutely not. But what I did no, why would I do anything that makes sense, you know?
Right.
But no, in college I actually I majored in communication, minored in psychology, worked in PR for a hot minute, loved planning events, but
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh, this isn't quite it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I jumped back to my psychology roots and I became a school counselor. So I'm like
Cool.
jack of all trades.
Yes, you are.
So I jumped into school counseling, and also at the same time, good dinner conversation. My family ended up on television for like a hot minute. My sister is married to Kevin Jonas of the Jonas
So fun.
Brothers. Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah, little teeny bopper life, which I shouldn't say that anymore. He's not a teeny bopper. Oh, God, I'm sorry. That's not what I mean. They're grown men making great music. Let's
Yeah.
get
Sorry.
that straight. But so they were doing a reality show called Married to Jonas, and
Wow.
for some reason they really pulled in my family. Well, I guess because we're all like kind of characters in a
Yeah.
sense. Got like, the Italian mom and dad, everything's
Mhm.
loud, everything's big, way too many siblings. And we ended up on television for a little while, and that's why I got a social media account. I
Okay.
realized I wasn't very savvy with that, but they're like, okay, now you're on the network. You have to sign up for Twitter and you have to sign up for Instagram.
Wow.
I'm like, sure. So I guess what started happening was I was also newlywed and I was just taking pictures of what I made us for dinner all the time. And because I'm like, all right, I got to put photos on here. The only thing I know to do is put photos of food. Places. I'm like, I don't know what else is interesting in life.
It's hilarious.
And I got my first job writing recipes for, I think, DiGiorno pizza and Philadelphia cream cheese.
Oh my
And they're like,
gosh.
can you write recipes for, an Easter campaign or something like that? And I was like, wow, I can do this and get paid for it. That was like my first foray into that. No longer was it me sitting at home just cooking for my family, or I would write out my recipes and put them up on a website, but it was more to give to my friends who were like, how do you make that? I didn't know I was writing a blog. Like I still don't know what I'm doing, but like I never really knew
Yeah.
what
Wait,
was
I love that this came up because I was with it, and I'm not crying, by the way. My eyes water all the time. I
mine
do love you.
too.
Yeah,
Mine
I
too.
do.
I got
I do love you, but this has not choked me up yet. But I was talking to a group of moms yesterday, and one girl came up after I talked to them, was crying, and said, I just feel so lost. And she was talking about her identity and a mom, and that she was a marketing girl. And I think what you're sharing, and I know you weren't yet a mom, but you probably
yeah.
are about to be, but it's like there's some ebbs and flows and journeys of where God's going to take you. And you're like, no, did I think that my ride alongs with my dad would land me on the Today Show cooking and would
No,
I have a cookbook? Like, it's just so unexpected to
none
just
of this.
buckle in.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've just learned, I guess, over the past like 8 to 10 years that there are just so many seasons of
Mm-hmm.
life, and through each one, whether it's like a mountaintop season or a valley season, he shows his hand in each
Yeah.
one, and I love. I love being able to recall those moments
Right.
with him. Like nothing I'm doing right now did I think I was going to be doing like
Right.
years ago. And it's, I'm not a big risk taker
Right.
either. So when I quit my school counseling job to say, let's do this full time, like that was agonizing for,
Yeah.
but he was like, no, like let's do this. And all along the way too, with being on social media and like not understanding, I didn't understand the whole like influencer thing. Like
Right.
I
Yeah.
wasn't doing that. I wasn't in the headspace. But I'm like, God, I'm like writing recipes and like putting them on the internet. Like, what does that have to do
Mm.
you? Like, I must be missing the mark. I was very, that was a big learning curve
Yeah.
for me. And I could say I still struggle with that. But had I not been in that forum, then when it came time for him to really mold my testimony through having the postpartum depression, through having
Mm.
cancer, I might not have been out there in such a way to be able to share my testimony
I
the way
love that.
I'm able to. So, I mean, and again, like any twist and turn I've ever taken, like I don't know, maybe I was really being like Jonah and like running into the whale by going back to school,
Yeah.
by going this way and going that way. But he's definitely always been really good at pivoting my stubborn self, and he uses every piece of it, and I think that's the most exciting part. Sometimes is when you're able to sit down and take inventory of like, look what he just did with all
Yeah.
of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether it
Yeah.
was all good or it was all mess. Like there's something that he did with that and he meant for that. Like you can never mess up so badly that he can't use you. Like
So
it's
good.
impossible. It's impossible. And I try to hold that close to my heart when I feel like on the daily that I'm like this, what are you doing, Dina? Like what are we doing? Like this.
Well, and today's conversation is perfect. I had all these list of food things I wanted to ask you, which we will get to, but
Yeah.
it's like, I love that you said that's kind of your connection point with people. And then as they dig, they're like, oh, she's been through stuff. Like she's like
Yes,
me. She's changed careers and had cancer and been a mom. And
of
so
course.
I
Yeah,
think there's a lot of moms listening that are like, I
I hope
just want
so.
the
Yeah.
plan. Like, I just want him to like lay
I do
out, like,
too. I still want the plan. I'm
right.
still always like, can you just like set a bush on fire outside? Like I want the burning bush. Like if you just set it on fire, I will do
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
what you said. Like come on. Like I'm looking for fire. I am looking for, let me have that dream where you just like spell it out for me. Like why don't I get the dream? It's
That's right.
frustrating. It's frustrating to be the person who wants the plan, and in your heart you're like, gosh, all I want to do is execute whatever. And he's like, but that wouldn't work because then you wouldn't have faith. You wouldn't be
Exactly.
pushing, you wouldn't be grabbing for like the hem of my garment. You wouldn't
So
be.
good.
So I get that. And I'm like, all right, I'll work with you there, Jesus.
So
I'll
good.
work with you there.
Okay. So how's your health now?
It's good. I think, once you have cancer at any level, it kind of like changes
Mm.
your trajectory a bit. It can open up a little bit of Pandora's box. You're just kind of like watched in a different way, and
Right.
a little thing is just like a little bit more serious until It's not. And I have to account for like I lost a body part. I don't have my thyroid anymore. I don't have that
Yeah.
control center. So, all I can say is God is good in sustaining me and giving me
Mm,
strength when I really need it. And in moments where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to weather this. I don't know if
right.
I'm gonna be able to do this today.
Have you
And
talked about your full cancer story somewhere we could link to for someone that wants the details of that?
but I think a lot of it ended up in the book.
Okay.
Just because at the same time I signed my book contract and thought all of this was well, it was ahead of me, but at the same time I did that, and I felt like, Sienna was in school and, a little bit more full time, that kindergarten 9 to 3. And I had asked God, like one day sitting alone at my desk. Well, I actually screamed at him, which wasn't really nice. I don't normally do that. But I
He
was
can take it. He can
I
take
know
it.
he can, and I just was like, God, I'm like, really? I'm like, what do you want? What do you want me to do now? I will do
Mm,
anything. Like, what do you want me to do? And it was funny, like Jill had asked, Jill Jefferson at Christian Parenting was like, who's your agent? Who's your whatever? I'm like, I have none of that. I'm like, it is me, myself, and I kind of still is. I do have a wonderful literary agent now that Jill introduced me to. And God just like had it all fall like dominoes. And it's
mm,
crazy to see like when he really opens a door, and it's not one like you've kicked open, it's not one that you've
right.
like wedged
Right.
open, and he's like, this is what's up. And so he had that all fall into place very quickly.
That's so fun.
And so I did the book contract, and I actually, he started opening up the doors for some speaking engagements at different churches. And so I thought to myself, like, okay, like you want me to write this book and go out and encourage women in this way and do this. I'm ready. Let's go. I got
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Got
Like, 2 weeks later, you have cancer. And I
it.
was like, wow, this is really interesting timing.
Wow.
But and it was devastating for a moment. And I say for a moment because the first moment it's devastating. The next moment I was like, wait a minute. I've seen this storm before.
Hmm.
My daughter had an emergency birthing situation, and then I walked through this whole like PTSD, postpartum depression
Mm,
anxiety, which I did not expect and which was like hard and murky, but I could see how it prepped me for what I had to face in the past year. And so I said, okay, I've seen these wind and waves, and I know this is going to be hard. I know what this kind of looks like. Let's do it better this time, Lord. Like I'm going to
wow.
grab onto you quicker. And um, this just means I can cast a wider net. I'm going to have more of a testimony. There's more people I can pull in. This is like, I was just convinced like, all right, we're going to go through something that's like deep and dark. But we're going to give you the glory, and we're going to further your name with this. And
Mm.
that's what I'm going to be committed to in this process instead of being only committed to having cancer.
I
Um,
love that you said grab onto you quicker. Man, is that such a life lesson. I was talking to my teen, like some teen girls that I have a small group
yeah,
with last
yeah,
night, and they was like, we always overthink, we always overthink. And I was
yeah,
like, okay, well, but like, how do we get to God quicker? Like, instead of like stewing for a year, but
for
that's the same
sure.
thing. It's like we all go through stuff. And I love that you said, like, Lord, just get me to you quicker because there's no other way. It's
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I
when
can
you're
handle this.
facing down like that valley, which, by the way, isn't always the worst place.
Mm,
Yeah, I've found that that is where I have essentially dug deeper into faith, but in a way where I can clearly see what he's showing me. Whereas sometimes when you're in the middle of stuff and it's not so bad, and so you're just busy like doing X, Y, and Z, and like sometimes you calm down and take a look, but then you're too busy doing. Sometimes when you're in the valley and you're trudging through and you have no choice but to let him drag you through it
yes.
basically. Like I always pictured myself, and I still do sometimes, like army crawling, and then just
Yeah.
like, I'm tapping out, and then him just like, taking my hand, just like dragging me through. And I'd be like, no, we're not. Like fine.
That's
Like,
hilarious.
lots of weird
That's
self-induced
amazing.
visions, I guess you
Hey,
could
thank you
say.
for sharing that. I feel like there's so much wisdom. And again, I wanted to check with you about food, but I think what God wanted to share through you is just all the ups and downs and that you have just clung to Him, which is so refreshing for moms to hear. To be like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And you're like, well,
Yeah, I mean, look, when I first had Sienna and I went from flying to Los Angeles back and forth, being on the Home and Family show, and just deciding with my husband, let's just fly to Canada because we were both going to work at the same time in Los Angeles and going to our sets because he's a producer, and
Wow.
things were getting very like jet set, like we do what we want. And I looked at him and I was like, wait a minute. Like, when I'm like 45, you can't turn to me and be like, wish we had kids. Like we were just
Yeah.
going too fast. And I was just like, wait a minute, this is so great, but let me ruin. No, no. Let me just take the whole thing. No. And God was good. And like immediately, hey, Sienna. And we couldn't have planned for what happened. But, I went through that phase where it looked like to me, I had this situation where everyone who had children or a baby around the same time that was in the same space, like they all just had like messy hair on top of their head, but were glowing. I'm tired, but I'm still going to hot yoga once in a while, which there's nothing wrong with that. I should have been taking a break. Like I'm not
Right,
saying that.
right. Yeah.
Just seeing the way it felt and looked, 8 years ago, not a lot of people were talking about the postpartum depression, or not a lot of people were really like showing, that messy part of parenting. It was more curated, and I fell into like a hard comparison trap. And why am I not still like moving and shaking?
Mm,
Why
yeah,
am I still not achieving? I should be able to hold her in one hand and like
right.
go forward with, the other hand. And I was just finding that wasn't true. And in that's where God really gave me that message of how much of a ministry it is, and we discount
Yes.
because it's not something that gets you noticed. And I thought back to my mother, and I'm like, and I said it to her too. I said, what you did was you built a family, and you built a family on a firm foundation, and you
That's right.
sacrificed and you gave up so much because there was four of us, which I think is crazy, but
Yeah. It's
and
definitely not glamorized in culture, and it's a
no,
fight to
and like
remember,
to
like,
them tell you that you were obedient to the Lord and that you were faithful in that.
mm,
And what you created for us now has created a legacy. And now your grandchildren are experiencing that.
mm,
We're bringing our grandchildren to church. So what you and dad did was like something bigger than that could be featured on Forbes
mm,
magazine. And I just now want women, anybody, to be encouraged that way. Like if you're on the floor cleaning up Cheerios, it feels like, what has my life become? But you're not real. Yeah. Like I remember standing out and looking at looking out the window, cleaning bottles at like 5 a.m. And I was like, what did I do? Like, what is my brain? Like, what is,
whose idea was this? What the
yeah,
heck?
I was like, is this going to be okay? Like, am I going to be this way
Yeah.
for forever? And that's something nobody can prepare you
No.
for. Like, your mom is like, oh, having a kid, you'll be tired, but it's wonderful. And then when you're
Yeah.
not feeling wonderful, you're then feeling like guilty and shameful. And it's a lovely pit that like Satan likes to come alongside you and say, let me
Yeah.
help you dig that. I'll get a shovel too. Like,
Yeah.
let's do this. And it was a hard merry-go-round to get stuck on. It was a hard
Yeah.
pit to be in. But
What
again,
helped you with the postpartum?
well, to be really honest, yes, lots of prayer and lots of support from family, church family. But I grappled with, Lord, I know you could pull me out of this. Like, I
Yep,
know.
I did too.
And yeah, he was like, sure, I can, and sure, I will. He's like, but I put people on earth to help you
Yeah.
get through this. And I learned that I had 2 years of taking medication
Yep.
and alongside counseling. And again, I have a background as a counselor, so I recognized after like 5, 6 months, like this isn't baby blues. Like I am so
Yeah.
anxious. I'm
Same.
talking in circles. Um, nothing is joyful for me, even though I'm trying. It has nothing to do with my child. There's something like I can't get
Yep.
out of this. There's this heavy pressing down that I'm not seeing my way out of.
Yeah. That's
Some,
exactly when I figured it out. Probably like
yeah,
6 months into my second child, and I was pretending, but I was really like, I want
yeah,
to melt down by 9 a.m. and I wanted my husband to come home. And my mom was the one that looked at me and said, "You're not okay." But I had the same conversations with my mentor going like, I surely I'm not praying right or I'm not doing enough. And she was
Yeah,
like, you're going to a doctor and you're going to get your head above water. And
yeah, for
it
sure.
made all the difference in the world. I know that's not the answer for everybody, but I think we need to
No.
talk about that and say like, what do you
Yeah.
want to suffer for years or like I said, get your head above water and be able to start
That's
moving forward.
exactly what I thought. I was like, I'd hate for her to like be turning two, and I could have remedied this
Yeah.
a little sooner. And I was surprised when I started talking about that because I can't hide anything. Like I can't
Yeah.
hide, I can't lie, I can't. I'm terrible. So I like
That's great.
I
It's a great trait.
can't have a surprise party with me. Like nothing. So hard for me to like not tell someone their Christmas gift.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
I'm not good. So I felt like at the time I had to share, even though I like again, I still struggle with sharing online and it feeling like, you're turning the camera on yourself and you're like, oh, what am I doing today? I'm like, who
Mm-hmm.
cares what I'm doing today?
Right.
But, I feel like uh, mentors have made the point to me over time that like if nobody spoke about Jesus and about the journey in this space, it would be a dark space. So
Mm.
that's your heart, is that you're trying to shine a light on, all right, he's using me to tell this story so someone else can see their story
Yes.
reflected in and plant a seed. And that's what started happening with sharing the situation with what I was going through being a new mom. And although I was
Yeah.
struggling with the guilt and shame of it, I was like, I didn't want anyone to like bounce on over to my part of the world and be made to feel the way I was feeling. Like, look at
Yeah.
her, like making all this food, her
Yeah.
cute baby, her like perfect. And so many people I feel like will ask Christians like, how do you keep your faith? And that question always kind of like struck me a certain way. It's as if I would give away my faith.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about keeping, it's about maintaining, and it's about like being intentional about like about grabbing onto him, as I said before. And I felt like people don't want to know what A and Z look like. Okay, it started out like this, and that was tough, but this looks great now. I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's what
Yeah.
does it look like in the middle? Like,
That's right.
how did you ever listen to a sermon and you're hearing like the beginning and the end, and sometimes you're sitting there like, yeah, but what did it really look like in the
Yeah.
middle?
You're like, great for you. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how'd you really pull out of that? So I thought, what a great opportunity to like show you like how terrible some days look and how he spoke to me there.
Yeah. I
Or like
love that.
who he sent to my doorstep in that moment. Or what like text message from like someone I haven't talked to in a couple years with like a verse who's like, God just put me on you on my heart today.
So
Here's something
good.
I have for you. And you're just like, that is just amazing. So
So
I like to
good.
show the journey. I like to show the in between. And that's why I put devotionals in the book.
So good.
Because when I was faced with the blessing of being able to do a cookbook, I was like, man, just like with everything else I've done, I don't want to give everyone like a glossy, like, oh gosh, she looks great in these pictures. Look at her house. Look at this food she makes, these gatherings she does for her family. Yeah, those moments like happen periodically. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really a good Pinterest board. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
and I was like, I missed a big opportunity to, reach out. And I can't be in front of everyone's kitchen sink. I can't grab you and hug you like as you're gripping it and like crying with your back to your family, like, oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna go off the deep end in like 5 minutes. But that's what the devotionals like and the writings are for. There's, over 40 of them in there. Like, yes, there's 70 recipes, but I just wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to share in black and white, like I've said, that those in between parts, those messy parts, and how God delivered me,
Yeah.
or how I'm still working through it with
Yeah.
Him, and
It's
like here's
great.
yeah. So that's I wanted to make sure that was there.
I love it. Two things I just want to keep saying to people as they're listening is like, I love that you didn't like manufacture this whole plan for your life, that you're just like, Lord, I want to glorify you, whatever. And that's kind of an encouragement to people. Be like, if you love food and you went through cancer and you had postpartum, like God can use all of it wherever to
Yeah,
glorify him and share about. So it's
yeah,
so cool. The other thing I want to encourage you on is I thought about this the other day. I had told my dad, we're going on a family ski trip and we haven't been in years and years and years. We
I,
did when I was growing up, but our whole family hasn't gone. And I said to him, like, we have such fond memories of this as kids. And he was like, you do? Like, so I love that, like, you went back to your mom and kind of affirmed her. And I want that to challenge us today to be like, is there anything your mom and dad did that you remember that was good? and they don't even know that you remember. Like, I think that would be so rewarding if, your daughter Sienna came back years later, was like, Mom, when we made this in the kitchen, you're like, you remember?
I know.
So,
They're like little sponges. They're listening. Like I remember just listening to a song by Hope Darst. It's gonna be okay. Like I
yeah,
forget
yeah.
the song that I would listen to in the car while dropping her off for preschool. And like one day she just started singing it like super loud in her room,
So cute.
playing with her dolls and whatever. And you're just like, wow, like it think
I
what
love it.
you're doing just it matters. Sometimes you're praying with them at night and you're like, do they even care, or are they just thinking
Yes.
about what they like, what cartoon they saw
Yeah.
today? But
All right,
they,
I have two super just curious, nosy questions for you, super
yeah.
fast, and then we'll get into some food. Okay, the first one is, at what point did Sienna realize who Uncle Kevin was? Was she like, what the what?
Gosh, I don't know if I could pinpoint a
Like,
little.
did she take her to a concert and she's
It
like,
wasn't heavy, and yeah, we did bring her to Hershey Park, a concert that she was so excited to go. And I think maybe that's where it
yeah.
started
She was like, all
clicking.
these people are screaming at my uncle. It's weird.
Yeah, all these people, and she has like a weird life. Like her mom is on television, and I brought her to the studio with me to do
Yeah.
like, the cooking things. And while she was little, I was doing Zoom cooking segments during that COVID time, so she started mimicking that in her own little baby
That's so
kitchen.
cute.
She would be like, "All right, I'm on. Turn it on." I'm like, "Oh no."
Oh, Lord. We have a
Like the
baby
monster we're
influencer.
creating. She actually just got to do a little walk-on part for his Christmas movie that they have been filming in
Oh,
Canada
cute.
recently. So she's got the vibe. Um, she thinks that she sometimes thinks that private planes are normal, and we have to.
Right.
I'm like, no. She's like, when are we going back to like Kevy's plane? I'm like, no. I'm like, that is not. We don't use
Yeah,
that.
no.
You
Here's
know,
a cab.
to the airport, and she's like, "Oh, this is where we always park." I'm like, "No, not where we've been here twice before. Like, we don't always park here." Like,
Hilarious.
yeah. So it's definitely like a different way of. I mean, I
I
didn't have
love
that growing up, so
No,
different.
no. All
It's
right, other curious question. Have you had I always think about when I'm watching people cook on television, I'm like, how stressful? Like you're talking, like have you had a big oops where like something spilled or you like it just seems so or do they have it I've noticed like they have it prepped in stages so you're kind of talking but you move to the
Well,
next
yeah,
phase.
that depends. If you're doing national television like Home and Family or The Today Show or Good Morning America, that's a dream. Like you walk in there, you show up pretty, they've got it all prepped, and yeah, you just like move through the line. How I started and how what I still do for some stations is I've got crock pots in my hotel room in Washington, D.C. to do, DC Today. I'm dragging in coolers up like flights of stairs of food that I've like taken 2 days to prep. What you're doing is you're prepping a finished dish, and
Mm.
then you're prepping out all of the finished pieces of it. And you have to think of, for some stations who have nothing, everything down to like the spoon you're going to use. Like I'll have to mime the recipe and put everything and pack everything and miming it. It's like nuts. And it's crazy. At first, when I first started doing it, like I didn't know how to do it. I just had a publicist friend who's like, I need someone to do a food demo, such and such a news station. Can you go and do it? And this was like 8 years ago. And I'm like, I guess.
Yeah.
And so big oopses. I am like really good at covering up. Like sometimes I'll be going through a recipe and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even have this ingredient. Let me just change the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll like cover it up. It's definitely, and you're doing it in 3 to 5 minutes. And you're like, at the beginning, I'm like, how do I make a 20-minute dish in
That's insane.
5 minutes? But it just seemed to be something I like to do. I had a knack for. I don't know where it came from, but I was like, that's the gift God gave me. I can talk to you about food all day long, but like, don't
Yeah.
ask me about interior design or math or
I love it.
percentages or
Love
anything
it.
like that.
Let's dive into food stuff. So here's I think I said at the start, like, I just hate it. And one
I
of the
get
things
it.
my friend was like, we're all good at different things. But I
Yeah.
think in my mind, I was like, well, I'm not good at this. And I've been saying it for years. Like every year, I'm
Yeah.
like, this is the year I'm going to cook. But my friend was like, no offense, like, this isn't an optional activity. Like, your children have to eat.
You have to. You
I was
eat
like,
for that.
oh, this isn't like, hey, I might be good at fashion. I might be good at interior design. It's like, no,
Yeah.
basically, our families have to eat. So I've gotten remotely better. But talk to, I guess let's start here. Talk to the mom who's like at 4 o'clock every day. Like, what am I putting on the table? What can we practically do? Is it the
Okay, so
meal
I
prep?
probably
And
shouldn't say this, but I am that mom like half the time.
okay, good.
Anyway, I know what I'm making for dinner tonight because it's my mom's birthday. That's the reason why I know. But I fall into that too. And I probably shouldn't say that being like a cookbook author, like trying
No,
to
it's relatable. Yay.
doing. But that's when I sat down to write this book and was thinking of the chapters. I'm like, okay, like first of all, I'm like, how do you even think of chapters? Like, again, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not trained in any of these, classically in any of these areas. And I was struggling, like, oh, breakfast, lunch, dinner, dip, snacks, and mains. I'm like, what do
Yeah.
we do here? Like, there's so much. And then I said to myself, like, let me look at a week in my life and like, how am I surviving
Mm-hmm.
food like every single day? Like what do people really need recipes for? Like how many like special occasion or cakes that you can't attempt or like muffins that you're never gonna make in the
That's
morning?
right.
Do we have recipes for? And look, I do make those things. So, and there are definitely recipes in the book that lend itself to that too.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how am I surviving? And, one day it was, I picked her up from school. We went to dance and then we were going to soccer practice, which is nuts. I don't recommend it. And I'm like, I just can't stop at Chick-fil-A one more time, which another
Yeah.
thing I'll say is when you're looking at your week, budget in like 1 or 2 nights that you're going to stop at
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A. Like stop
Yeah.
stressing yourself out and being like, no matter what, I'm going to make it homemade every single
Yeah.
night. Like stop doing that. Yeah, I had unrealistic expectations when I first got married. The plate had to have a main and two sides and like a
Mm-hmm.
salad. Like it was crazy what I was doing. Um, and that's where like we tailgated. I did. I prepped a little bit beforehand where I made us a pizza, I made us some salad, I packed it up, and we tailgated in the parking
It's
lot
great.
between soccer and dance. So that's where the carpool
Love
nights
that.
came
That's
up. What
cute.
can you eat in the car? What can you pack up and eat in the car? And then
Cute.
there's
What
like
would Sienna eat every week if you made it every week?
so I'm lucky where she will eat things like she likes fish, she likes breaded flounder,
What?
chicken cutlets. I know that's gonna
You
make
know,
you
it's
mad.
not for on the menu at my house, breaded flounder. That's amazing.
She likes it. She likes it though. She loves charred broccoli, which I do have that recipe.
Ooh.
So she thinks like regular broccoli that's on like a dip tray, you have like all the veggies out. Remember her picking up a piece of broccoli and she's like, "Mommy, what's wrong with this broccoli?" I'm like, "No, this is the way it really well, you're just used to it like charred and really crispy with a little bit of salt and honey
Yeah.
over it." I'm like, "But this is real
It's
broccoli."
hilarious.
So, she's a little skewed in that. Like, she won't eat a grilled cheese. She won't eat a peanut butter and jelly, but she wants like a poke bowl with like seaweed sprinkled over it. And I don't know,
Hilarious.
I didn't try to do that, and that's a little hard when it comes to school lunch. But we're big
Yeah.
fans of a good crispy cutlet. We're big fans of a good pasta dish. She loves a simple like garlic and oil, like that kind of with like some herbs in it. I don't know, I just served her everything I could at the beginning, and I do address picky eaters in
Oh,
the book.
good.
Because she definitely swings, both ways. She's had times where she'll eat anything and she'll try anything, and then she had like 2 years straight where she would only eat like the same five things, and I'm like, what happened
Yeah. Yeah.
here? And you just have to understand that it's like normal. They go through it and never make anything extinct from the table or their plate
Love that.
because she would love green beans one moment and then be disgusted by them the next, but then like 3 months later she'd go back to it.
Yeah. It is interesting how they do change over the years. And I
They
think,
they do. They do. So you have to account for that. And there's always these random nights where she's like, "Mommy, can I try that?" And I'm like, I fall off my chair and I'm like
yeah.
floored. Like, "Oh yeah, yes, of course you can." I'm having a heart attack. And also eating with them is important. I think I would make it a point to, like when I was home with her, to eat with her, and she would grab stuff off my plate. I was afraid to feed her salad. When she was younger, around like 2 or so, I thought like the leaves would, I don't know, get stuck in her throat. I don't know what crazy things I'm, always thinking. And she just reached over, grabbed some, put it in her mouth, and she's still eating salad. And I was like shocked. And everyone's like, "What, can't eat salad?" I'm like, I don't know, but she like
That's so
it.
cute.
off
All right,
my.
well, let's end here. Talk about, and I know you grew up in a family like this, which I love, but talk about, just remind us the importance of just getting to the table together and realistically, not every single night, depending on your schedules, but why do you think it matters? Why did it matter to you to be around the table with your family?
I mean, I think it was a couple of reasons. I know that all throughout my life, there's been different challenging moments, and it seemed for me that the comforting memories that I would kind of go back to, like whether I was in college in my dorm room and I was feeling really lonely, like missing everyone, or I don't know, it was like those moments where I could remember waking up for a nap and smelling like what my mom was making for dinner, like the garlic and the oil hitting the pan, or
Mm,
watching her set up for a holiday with my grandma in the kitchen. Like, I got to stay up later that night because I was just like quiet, sitting at the kitchen table watching them do the
mm,
and like those things, I don't know, they made an impression on me. And as I moved into my adult life, even before being married and having children, like I said, I was cooking in my dorm room or having Christmas parties at my parents' house. I was
whoever you roomed with in college.
out and I'd be like, all right, I'm having people over for dinner, like a fancy Christmas dinner party. Like, you guys need to leave.
I
Like, I
can't
was
even
super
imagine your college roommates were like, score! How did we get this girl?
and there is a picture of me like in my sweats, like at our little table. I have like chicken parm in front of me. I have salad. I have like a big thing of spaghetti. And I was sitting there by myself because I didn't realize that like everybody like had class or something else to do. And my friend just took not even like a cell phone picture. It was like a regular camera.
Old school, old school.
Old school. And I'm just sitting there with like a look on my face, like, well,
That is so
and
cute.
then through my school counseling years, a lot of the children I had just wanted more FaceTime with someone. And I
Mm,
started thinking like how I know everyone's busy, everyone's trying, everyone's working, everyone's like doing the best they can. And sometimes we get caught up in the idea that it has to look a certain way or
yeah,
it has to be a certain way. I mean, I get caught up in that too, but there's nights where you just do breakfast for dinner and
yeah.
that's
So
everything.
good.
That's
Love it.
everything. And that's all you need it to be. So while this book has like some beautiful recipes, sure, the heart of it is not that. It's not like trying to get a Martha Stewart moment.
So good.
It's just trying to get like your own personal moment with the Lord and with your family.
Love that. I feel like you get us. One of the things I would tell people, and mine are teenagers now, but I would try to make like these devotions or just try to have this like total, like
Yeah.
against what I believe. I would like have this speaking moment or lecture. And what I realize is I just want to be heard as well. So,
Yeah.
like, just the ability to ask them questions and just actually look them in the eyes and say, how was your day? You know, you say
Yeah.
happy, crappy, high, low,
Yeah.
like
Oh, I
them
love
just
Happy Crappy.
yeah, it's like just
My
saying
favorite.
like what is going on in their life or just asking them questions versus telling them the answer. Like I was just amazed how wise my girls were when I would just throw something out and it could be anything. I mean, it could be any topic. And I was like, wow, like I need to listen to them more often. So I think those opportunities at the table are huge for them. You just watch their face light up when it's like
Yeah.
someone's actually interested in me and what I have to say or my win of the day.
For sure. And don't try for that opportunity. Even like when I look at my week, I plan 2 to 3 like solid meals that I
Mm,
know I'm going to execute. I have the ingredients for that. And then I leave room for like the leftover or for the night where something doesn't go as planned. It helps me budget as well. And you find that one night, you can find at least one night in a week where you're all going to be in the same place at the same time. And then that's when you make it a point to do your happy crappy or whatever. So don't get
yeah.
discouraged if it's not happening like every single night or 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
And then you're failing and then you stop doing it altogether. Like try to be realistic with your goals when you sit down.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a great idea.
make them attainable.
2 to 3 meals feels doable. Okay, I'm motivated. I'm getting up to figure out what's for dinner. Dina, thank you so much. And I'm so excited for you. Like, I love when you see people on TV and then you're like, I am rooting for her because I love the heart behind what
Thanks
you
so much.
do and
Appreciate that.
just pray years and years of much health with you and your family.
Oh, thank you. It's been a joy. I really appreciate this.
Christian parenting.